Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the final regular season episode of Picks Against the Spread, brought to you by our friends over at MyBookie. I cannot believe that we're in week 17 already. It feels like we were just in training camp and just in the draft before that. But man, the season flew by. It was a lot of fun. And I do want to say one thing before we get these games going, and that's that last week sucked really, really bad. I went 0-3, probably my worst week of the year in terms of picks. The Ravens upset the Chargers on the road. Cleveland won, but still didn't cover, which kind of killed me. And then Houston obviously lost in that last second field goal by the Eagles. So it was a really brutal week for me. I'm hoping to finish strong and kind of get back on track like I was the month prior to last week. So let's just kind of get back on track and jump right into this by going back to the old well that is the Cleveland Browns. We've picked a lot of Browns games this year, mostly because their lines are always very interesting. They don't necessarily win by a lot, they don't really lose by a lot, but their games are always really, really at least fun to watch for me. It's a very balanced team, very young team, but a lot of really, really sneaky talent. And they're going down to Baltimore to essentially decide who wins the AFC North. Obviously, the Browns can't win it, but if they win this game, that will decide who wins the North, assuming that the Steelers can also take care of the Bengals, who, you never know what happens with Pittsburgh and Cincinnati games. But, the big one to watch is Cleveland at Baltimore. It's a battle between two rookie quarterbacks that were taken in the first round. Obviously, I'm a huge Baker Mayfield fan, but don't let that make you think that I don't like Lamar Jackson. A lot of people were going into the comments of last week's video on the Ravens offense saying that I hate Lamar and I'm biased against Lamar and yada, yada, yada. I don't hate Lamar Jackson. Ironically enough, I think he's a better pocket passer than he is on the move, which most people kind of characterize mobile quarterbacks as not being able to stay in the pocket. To me, Lamar is better in the pocket. He's much better in the pocket. His mechanics are better. His accuracy is better. The most dynamic part of his game is obviously his mobility, so you kind of want to get him out on the edge as a runner every now and then, but he's not a guy that I'm going to be like bootlegging out and having him throw on the run like I would with Baker Mayfield. Like, if I want Lamar to pass, I'm going to keep him inside that tackle box and just let him throw darts with that big arm of his. So, he's a very interesting skill set. I think people just kind of mischaracterized my opinions on him. I like Lamar. He's obviously not ready to be like a great quarterback yet, but that doesn't mean I think he's bad. He's a developmental player. We all thought and we all knew he was a developmental player. Just because he's not elite yet and he's not as polished as Baker doesn't mean I don't like him. Baker was in college for like 5 years and he started like 4 seasons. Of course he's going to be more polished. That's just the prospect he was. That's why I had him going second overall and I had Lamar going in the late first round to the Steelers. Ironically enough, he ended up on the Ravens. But yeah, so I like Lamar. I don't know why people didn't think I liked Lamar. I think he's got a bright future in Baltimore, but when I look at this game, specifically when picking against the spread, I feel like Cleveland has a distinct quarterback advantage. I feel like their run defense matches up well with the Baltimore run game. And yes, I know God, I'm doing that again. Yes, I know the Chargers did not completely shut down the Baltimore run game, but they sure as hell slowed it down to what their numbers were before. And Cleveland's run defense is even better. They're holding, in the last 3 weeks, they've held teams to like 76 yards per game, which is super low. It's like top 5 in the league, 3.3 yards per carry. Again, it's like top 5 or 6 in the league. So this is a really, really good run defense, and I think that they're going to be able to slow down Baltimore even more than LA did. Not completely stop them, obviously. Nobody will completely stop them, but they'll slow them down. And so when I look at, Baker Mayfield versus Lamar Jackson, if neither team can run the ball that well, because these are both really good run defenses, who do I trust more to pass? Obviously, I'm going to pick Cleveland. Obviously, I'm going to think that Baker Mayfield is going to be more situated to survive in a pretty much pass-only kind of game where neither team can run the ball because he's a more polished passer. Doesn't mean that Lamar can't pass at all, but, am I crazy to think that Baker Mayfield is a better passer right now? No, everybody thinks so. That's just obvious. So when I look at Baltimore -6, really the only reason why they have, being favored by 6 is A, they're at home. B, their defense is really, really good. C, they sacked Baker 5 times last time they played, and I think Cleveland won that game anyway. It was like 12-9, really, really sloppy defensive game. So people are kind of banking on the Ravens pass rush being able to get after him again, the defense shutting them down just like they did the Chargers, and Baltimore being able to run the ball better than they did back then. all of those are valid points, but just because the Ravens are a different team now doesn't mean that the Browns also aren't a very different team now. Neither of these teams is remotely close to what they were the first time they met. Like, it's not even in the same universe for either team. You know, Baker is super hot. The offensive line is hot. Yes, they gave up 21 sacks in his first 6 games, but in the 6 games since then, they've only given up 3 sacks. So, you know, they cut his sack rate down by 85% in the second half of his season. That is crazy. Absolutely crazy. Like, this Browns team has evolved just as much as Baltimore has. And I know they don't have a signature win like the Chargers, or at least over the Chargers like the Ravens do, but that doesn't mean that I don't think that the Browns can't sweep the Ravens. Like, they are just as talented overall, I think, as the Ravens, and they have a better quarterback. So, do I think that Baltimore is absolutely going to lose this game? No, because A, Baltimore is very hard to play in, and B, yes, they have a good defense. But am I going to spot them 6 points against a really hot Browns team with a really good rookie quarterback, having one of the best rookie seasons ever for a quarterback? No. Like, that is way too big of a line for me when I look at how close these teams are right now. Home field advantage or not. So I'm taking the Browns, maybe not necessarily to win the game, but I don't think they're going to lose by 6. That would really surprise me. Not that the Ravens haven't surprised me before. Obviously, they beat the Chargers last week. But still, as good of a matchup as I thought the Chargers were for Baltimore, I think Cleveland's an even better matchup for them. So, yeah, give me, in a very sloppy, ugly defensive game, give me the team that has a more stable passing game and a more polished quarterback, which would be the Browns to cover at -6. I know it's kind of or +6, I guess, for them. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on that game. I know it's kind of a convoluted way of getting there, but that's just kind of how I feel about both teams involved as they've kind of grown throughout the year. And that'll bring us to our next game of the week, which is another game that will determine a playoff spot, this time in the NFC, and that's Chicago going up to Minnesota to play in a Week 17 barn burner, which will determine if the Vikings make the playoffs. Not that they 100% have to win the game, but, you know, if they win, they're automatically in. They don't have to, you know, rely on anybody else losing. It is a win and in scenario for them. And for Chicago, what's interesting is they still have a chance to get a bye if they win and the Rams lose, but both them and the Rams are playing at the same time at 4:25 Eastern. So the thing you have to consider here is, A, Eddie Jackson might not even play, which already makes me nervous because he's literally their second most important player on defense behind Khalil Mack. And especially for a team that has as deadly a receiving core as the Vikings, Eddie Jackson matters a lot. So A, that already makes me nervous about it. B, they get the 3 seed no matter what they do if the Rams also win. So if the Rams are up big in the 3rd or 4th quarter, which you can see in the stadium, you'll see the scores as they go, and this game is close, we might see Nagy pull the starters because whether they win or lose would be irrelevant. And if they feel like the Rams are going to win no matter what, they're not going to risk guys getting injured in the 4th quarter of a game that would not matter. And since the Rams are heavily favored to beat the Niners at home, that's one more thing to consider. So if you're betting on the Bears to win in a close game without one of their best defensive players, you're also essentially betting on the Niners to keep that game close enough that Nagy won't pull the starters. So it's kind of a tough situation to bet on here because there's a lot of factors in play and not all of them are even in this game. So I'm personally going Vikings, which are favored by 4, because A, they have a pretty decent chance of winning the game anyway if Jackson doesn't play. And B, if, say, you know, the Bears are down or if they start taking injuries and if the Rams are up by 2 touchdowns, they might just pull everybody and keep everybody safe, you know, for next weekend when they're hosting, I guess, what would be the Vikings again. And also keep in mind that the Bears, if they do host the Vikings again, they're not going to show their whole playbook if they have to play this team again next week in Chicago. They might even come out with a very vanilla game plan anyway and just hold back all their good stuff for a game that they don't even have to win. So there's a lot that goes into this game that is not necessarily all on the field and all about matchups. And I don't really feel good about betting the Bears because of that. So yeah, mark me down for the Vikings, not necessarily because they're a better team, but just the circumstances surrounding this game make it very, very tough for me to rely on the Bears to win this game if they might not actually be trying 100% to win it. Not that they don't want to win it, but If they don't need to, they might not. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, I'm sticking with Minnesota because of that. And that'll bring us to our final game of the week, which is the Colts going down to Nashville to take on the Titans in prime time. This will decide the 6th seed in the AFC. It is easily the biggest game of the week. Not necessarily between the two best teams, but in terms of overall impact, not just in the AFC playoffs, but potentially in the Super Bowl. This is a massive game because to me, the Colts are the last team I want to play in either conference. I am more scared of the Colts than any other team. And maybe that's just because I'm a Texans fan and that franchise has scarred me for life. I want no part of them in the AFC playoffs. I am begging for the Titans to win this game. Absolutely begging for them to win. And the Colts right now are favored by 3, probably mostly because Marcus Mariota's status is uncertain. He did throw balls at practice today, or yesterday, I guess, when you look at when I recorded this. But whether Marcus plays or not, I don't necessarily think it matters. I think the Colts will win this game, so I am taking them at -3. I don't want them to win, but I think they will because I think they are right now the most balanced and most dangerous team in the whole conference. And I think if we let them into the playoffs as a 6 seed, nobody is safe. I would rather play the Chiefs right now, the Patriots, the Steelers, the Ravens, you name it. I would rather play anybody but the Colts because they have a run game, they have an offensive line that can protect Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is playing as good or better than he ever has before, which should scare all of you because he was already an elite quarterback anyway. And now they've got a defense. This is the first time in the Andrew Luck era that they have an actual bona fide good defense. Their pass rush is active despite not having any true superstars. Darius Leonard is a phenom at linebacker. He does absolutely everything for them. He's good in coverage. He's good as a blitzer. I mean, the dude, they put him out in the slot to cover DeAndre Hopkins, and he got a pass breakup. That is ridiculous for a linebacker. I don't think I've ever seen a linebacker ever do that. So I don't want to play this team because they can run the ball, they can play defense, and if shit gets crazy, they got a quarterback that can win in a shootout, no problem. I really cannot express to you guys how worried I am about them. This week's Film Room episode is all about it. It's basically explaining why you don't want the Colts in the playoffs and why you should all be rooting for the Titans. Because the Titans are an infinitely easier team to beat right now than the Colts. The only reason that they didn't score any points against Jacksonville was because they ran the ball 12 times and their center was out, Ryan Kelly, who's hugely important to their run game. Kelly is back and they've been whooping ass up front ever since. I do not like this matchup for the Titans. I don't like this matchup for anybody. So to me, a 3-point favorite for the Colts on the road is a gift. If they won by less than a touchdown, I would be very surprised. And I'll leave it at that. This is a dangerous team. There's only so many ways I can put this. I just want to make everybody aware of how scared I am of the Colts. They're legit. So just to recap, in terms of picking against the spread this week, I am taking Cleveland to cover -6. Not necessarily to win straight up. I would not blame you for picking Baltimore to win straight up, but I do think that if Cleveland loses, it's going to be by less than 6. I'm picking Minnesota to cover that 4-point spread because I feel like Chicago might end up pulling starters depending on how the Rams game is going, which could obviously impact the result. So I feel like Minnesota's a safer bet there. And of course, I am picking the Colts to cover that 3-point favorite for them because they are just a really freaking good team. So yeah, I want to thank everybody for sticking with me through these regular season picks. We had some very strong weeks on MyBookie. We had some not so strong weeks. But overall, if you did stick with my picks like I did, you came out ahead. So you can never really go broke taking a profit. It was a lot of fun, and I want to thank MyBookie, obviously, for sponsoring this whole series through the regular season. I believe I will be coming back and doing more picks for the postseason games as well. So if you do want to get in on that, you can still, of course, go to MyBookie every single week, enter promo code Brett when you sign up and deposit. And that deposit bonus will give you an extra 50% on that deposit, which you can use exclusively on the site, which will then obviously generate real money for you when you win with that deposit bonus. So it's basically just kind of giving you free betting credits to use to generate real money, and it's a really awesome deal. Very generous on MyBookie to do that for all you guys. So again, thank you to them for sponsoring the channel. Thank you guys for sticking with me every single week and kind of going through these picks with me and roasting me when I get them wrong and congratulating me when I get them right. The NFL is a very crazy place, and Not everything goes the way we think it does, but if you get it right just enough, you can get pretty good money out of it. So again, thank you all for watching. I'll be back probably next week with more picks, definitely at least another Film Room episode. So yeah, I'll see you guys next Thursday or Friday, and until then, later.